currently, if you're thinking, I have no idea what to sell or how I would select a proven niche, I think you'll have the opposite problem after this episode, where you'll have so many that it's about whittling it down really and choosing the best option, because there are so many.
Today, we're pulling back the curtain on our method to find 7-figure dropshipping products. To put it simply, we follow a repeatable process that can be completed by anyone with an internet connection to find winning dropshipping products. So, Lewis, I think it's about time that we dedicated an entire podcast episode to one of the most important stages of any e-commerce business.
Definitely is. Yeah, absolutely, James. The truth is that when you're hunting for the perfect product, and I use that term very loosely because I know that there really is no such thing, it isn't about waiting for this lightning bolt of inspiration to just suddenly strike you and then suddenly you have what you need. It's about being smart. It's about doing your homework and really keeping your eyes open for opportunities. So today, let's try and peel back the layers and get into the nitty-gritty of product selection.
Exactly. I'm surprised, we've done 62 episodes so far of the podcast and we haven't covered this topic with its own episode. We've talked about how to find suppliers, but this time we're going to really dive into finding a niche or finding a product to base your store around. So first off, Lewis, I know that we always start this process with some brainstorming, as how every great idea starts. So can you talk us through that way that we brainstorm potential product ideas or potential niche ideas?
Yes, of course. So finding a niche starts with a mix of personal curiosity. So thinking, what am I curious about? Like asking the right questions, but also market awareness and not being too tied into your emotions and letting that dictate you. We want to let the data dictate us. If we want to have a successful business that we can be sure is going to be selling sustainable, reputable, reliable suppliers and products for the long term. So we draw inspiration from everywhere when we go, and I like to just not limit myself initially and just build an initial list of products. So whether that's considering personal hobbies or if it's like frustrations in our daily lives, if you think, there's definitely a market for something slightly better than X, like whatever it is that you may be frustrated about throughout your life, just keep a notepad on your phone and just add to that list over time and try and be more conscious every day of those products that perhaps you just walk past or you'd usually ignore or you just take for granted, and just think, because if they're there in your everyday life, the chances are they also exist in a lot of other people's everyday lives, and therefore perhaps there's a quite in-demand market there for them. I know when I first started brainstorming for dropshipping niche ideas, and I was thinking, how do I come up with inspiration? Because it's difficult. You're sitting in front of a computer and you're like, it's like that writer's block. You look at a blank screen on a document and you're like, well, where do I start? How do I even start this thing? But the way I do it is change my environment. So I would walk around my local neighborhood in London and I would look at the different products around and, in people's houses, or walk around shopping centers. And I would just kind of try and see what stood out to me that I thought could be a viable niche. And like I say, without ruling anything out at this stage, I'd just jot it down as a note on my phone so that I'd end up with a good list of 50 potential items. Now, I call this wearing the niche research glasses. That's how I refer to it inside my book, The Home Term Advantage, and inside our training program. Because once you understand the criteria that we'll run you through in today's episode, it's very difficult to take the glasses off. You're wearing them and you won't be able to stop seeing potential niches. So hopefully that's an advantage, because currently if you're thinking, I have no idea what to sell or how I would select a proven niche, I think you'll have the opposite problem after this episode, where you'll have so many that it's about whittling it down really and choosing the best option, because there are so many that could work. The other ways that you can do it are you can watch YouTube videos, look at house tours, look at like MTV Cribs or Selling Sunset or $1 Million Listing, or these Netflix shows where they have really like high-end houses. Those people have money, and when they have money and they want to invest in nice things for around their house, they're passionate about those items, they'll often pay a very high amount for them. And so if you can find products that you think match a lot of the criteria that we'll go through in today's episode, then that can help. You've even now got AI. I mean, this kind of thing didn't really exist when I was doing this in 2017, but now you've got ChatGPT or Google Gemini or Claude or whatever you need to use to provide you with the list, and you can feed it those criteria and start to get the cogs turning that way as well. So Yeah, I'd usually aim to try and get a list of about 50 different broad product ideas before moving on, because at that stage, I can then start whittling things down. But at this initial point, I'm just throwing ideas into the mix.
I remember doing this process, and I was walking around my local area, which is a bit more rural than yours. You were being based in London, and I was walking past sheds that I'd never sort of thought I could sell those. I was writing those down. I started to write down large outdoor ornaments that I was walking past, greenhouses, those types of things. That as I just walked past them, and I knew this was the first stage of finding my winning product, I would just write down all of these ideas, take away the judgment, take away any sort of idea of putting data behind any of the ideas that you write down at this point, because that comes down later. At this stage, it's just a case of getting a nice long list, about 50 or so, and then you can start to whittle down from there. So now you've got that list in place. How do you then ensure that the niches on that list meets the validation criteria that you set out?
Sure. So the validation criteria, I guess you'd think of it a bit like a pilot's pre-flight checklist before takeoff. They have those safety checklists that they have to go through. Now, every box must be ticked on that checklist before they take off, just to make sure that you're off for a safe and, in our case, profitable journey. So we'll use tools like Google Shopping and a tool called Keywords Everywhere, and we can link those in the notes below this episode. But that's to ensure that there's a hungry market there waiting for us if we were to go ahead with that niche. Because the last thing you want to do is build your store, sign your suppliers, turn up, and then there's no interest, no demand. Even if you're really passionate about the items, if there's not adequate demand out there, then it's not going to be much of a business, and you're going to have to try and drum up interest. And it's just much easier to serve the existing demand. So let's find where that demand is. So that's one of the first criteria we'd look at. Also, we want to try and find that sweet spot of competition. Some people say, I've found a niche, I think, where there's no one else doing it. And I think I've struck gold. It's a unicorn niche and I'm going to be the first one to break it. What do you think? And I'm like, well, it could work. But for me, that's a big red flag, because that likely means that there's a reason for that lack of competition. And there's probably some big downsides that we haven't yet considered because we're not yet in that market. So I'd proceed with caution at that stage. And I don't know, I'd much rather operate personally in a proven market where I can see that there are competitors already there, already operating successfully, profitably, and have been there for some time as well, because I'll put my own spin on the business that I create. I'll win my share of the market anyway, but I just want to know that there's a big enough market and that there are other people already succeeding, and that there aren't any of these unforeseen pitfalls that prevent people from succeeding in that market. Because if that's the case, and I don't know what those are, I'm seeing red flags at that point and thinking, right, there's no competitors here. Why? I don't know if I want to be the pioneer that goes to try and find out.